You laid that out for your client, because now what you did was you effectively built something on paper, something tangible that the client can look at and they could say, yes, this is what I want. I want to buy this thing. So Dave had a great idea, and then I want to talk about Starbucks in the third place, but let's get into what Dave wanted to talk about first.
Sure. Well, we talked about last episode about Scott Gardner, United Physical Therapy Association, trying to push for physical therapists opting out of Medicare. And Jeff Moore and Ice Physio and that whole crew, like, they're also posting stuff and putting out social media posts and sharing ideas and thoughts around physical therapists opting out of Medicare. And I think they're even supporting, like, writing to your senators and legislators to do so. So I was just thinking before the show, I wrote to you guys and I said, let's say we got there. Let's say we were able to do that and physical therapists were able to opt out of Medicare if they wanted to under their own volition, and then offer their self-pay rates to Medicare beneficiaries who actually have medically necessary issues, so that the services usually would be covered and they still would be covered. And then the Medicare beneficiary would have a choice of going to a Medicare-based physical therapy that takes their Medicare, or pay out of pocket for their medically covered services. Before we get even further, is that that's would be the result, right, Tony? Like they would have that choice now, the Medicare beneficiaries?
Yeah, basically, it's both parties would have a choice. The provider would have the choice to choose to be an opt-out provider, which means that you have the ability to enter into a private contract just between you and the beneficiary pays you for those services. And then the beneficiary has the option to choose to pay you for your services, which, there's 1,000 conversations in different directions around both of those.
Right. So more choice is typically good, especially like in the US in terms of competition, and it could, elevate competition. But if the consumer has more choices, typically that's a good thing, or oftentimes a great thing. And of course, I just wanted to get into a little bit of like maybe the phone conversations or the sales component, but obviously there's so many factors that go into this in terms of like the word of mouth reputation of the physical therapy clinic and their online reviews. And, of course, even still geriatrics are still going on Google and Yelp, and they're looking at online reviews, at least on the East Coast, as far as I know. But that was kind of like my intro to this in terms of like talking points.
Yeah, I think it's a great one. Jimmy missed the second half of Tuesday, so this is part of where we started going with it. What I would say, and this for me is like a universal, everything goes back to marketing. Everything goes back to marketing. Marketing is communication. Marketing is laying the groundwork, helping the potential consumer understand who you are, what you do, what you deliver, why it's valuable, how it's going to improve their quality of life. Every single time I see an argument on the healthcare side, it can almost always be resolved by better marketing. We don't get paid enough. Why? Because the consumer doesn't understand the value you're delivering. Market better, communicate better. They will pay you more. They will pay you what maybe you believe the service is worth. So to your point, what makes the difference between a Medicare beneficiary saying, I already paid into the system, I've already had money taken out of my paycheck for 40 years, and now I have a chance to use the benefit that I've been paying for, I don't want to pay out of pocket. Okay, that's totally fine. Like, the system is there to accommodate that person. But there's also the person who is like, I want something better. I don't want minimum standard of care. I don't want, and to me, this is really where the system should be. If I'm a new grad, I just don't have the experience. No matter how smart I am, how great the school was, no matter how much effort I put in, I don't have the experience of a 10, 20-year veteran who's done advanced education, who's gone to, work with mentors, who's seen thousands of cases. So I think the conventional third-party payer system should be designed to allow new grads to gain work experience while getting paid on the job. Once you meet a minimum threshold and you're ready to move beyond that as a professional, and you can communicate that value through text, through video, through audio, through whatever, photos, then you should move out of that system, charge more, and help a different group of clientele.
Oh, a couple things. I love that. So yes, communicating it is one of the big challenges because we weren't taught it in school. And historically, the owners that have been in business for more than 10 years, they were taking all the in-network insurances that especially were taking Medicare Part B. They never had to do this, right? So I think that's also part of the problem. They never had to convey value verbally. They didn't care about, now I think more practice owners are caring about racking up Google reviews, maybe not you, but like others in general, like are caring about the online footprint and, videos that you're also doing. But 5, 8, 10, 15 years ago, these owners didn't have to do that. There was no sales process that was needed. There was no sales process in place because it wasn't needed. And it was just like, are we, convenient enough? Does the parking lot have parking nearby? Like, is it close enough to the patient? And you take my Medicare benefits, like, all right, great. And like, what's your soonest availability? All right, let's book. So there was never any need for this whole thing that we're talking about. So marketing, communication, like how you're writing phrases and sentences on your website, and is it attracting a certain person or not? It was kind of just like, whatever. It was like, we'll take anyone that has their Medicare benefits, right?
And that's what it was. I mean, it's so important to understand the context of a practice 15 or 20 years ago. We were getting paid more by each payer. We were getting audited less by each payer. We had lower cost of service, like rent was cheaper, supplies was cheaper, you could hire a therapist. When I first came into private practice, ownership
was cheaper.
2021, I could hire a physical therapist with 10 years experience who was an amazing physical therapist for $21 an hour, and I would be paying $2 or $3 an hour more than the hospital was paying. So like those models could work at a time like that. Plus, patients, not talking Medicare always had the 20% coinsurance, but other patients would have a $10 or a $15 copay, not a $50 or a $60 copay. Like, why are we still trying to force this idea of saying, physical therapy today is comparable to what it was 15 or 20 years ago? It's a completely different world, but we're using the same language. I was just watching, I forget what channel it was, but they were talking to a local baker who made like cinnamon rolls and things like that. And she was saying, there is no way I could operate today if I didn't put all of my effort into social media. Like anybody could bake a great cinnamon roll. Doesn't take much, a little bit of flour, a little bit of cinnamon, some sugar. But she's like, the difference is I learned how to use my camera on my phone, how to record videos, how to upload them to social media. She said, I, as a small business owner, can't afford to pay a media company to do it for me. But if I do it, I can then run my business profitably because I can get more customers. I can communicate, how great these look, how great they taste, all of that stuff. And that's kind of where we are in healthcare. This goes back to, there's a lot of solutions for back pain. Many of them are more attractive to the general consumer than losing weight, exercising, changing lifestyle, going through, all of the things that we want our clients to go through. It's not very appealing. But the idea is we can make it appealing. We can communicate the value to the right clientele. We didn't have to do that, like you said, 20 years ago. Doc said, go to therapy, barely cost them anything. They would go. Now we live in a completely different world.
Right on. So you want to get a little bit deeper into the things. I mean, my thought is I would maybe review with you guys like things I've said recently on phone calls with Medicare beneficiaries. No, we haven't been able to fully across the nation opt out, right? So these are like, when I do the phone screen, I get a sense of what's going on with this Medicare beneficiary. We don't take Medicare. We don't bill it. I have to go through a phone screen, and most of the time, as I've talked about before, most of the time, they don't have issues with dressing, bathing, personal hygiene, all the vital ADLs. And they want to, they want to go from walking 2 to 3 blocks to walking 10 or 15 blocks. Or they just said, oh, I just got back from a cruise, or we just got back from Europe. And like, they're like functional, like well beyond most likely the Medicare guidelines of like function and impairment and all that. So anyway, I have some like phrases and things that I've been using. But even before getting into that, like what's so funny to me is like when I do some of these phone calls, it's almost like a little bit of I don't want to say like a magic show, but like someone's calling around and they have like, if a Medicare beneficiary is calling around, they're looking to use their Medicare benefits most of the time, 50 to 75% of the time, even when they call us. There's, of course, maybe 25-ish to 50% of the time, depending on call volume, where a Medicare beneficiary is speaking to our answering service that records the phone call and I can listen to it. And they'll say something like, I have Medicare, but if you don't take Medicare, how much is it out of pocket? Like, that's obviously my style of ideal client. That's an easy sell for me. Like, I already know that person's probably going to convert because they already are in tune with the possibility of paying out of pocket. What's fascinating to me as an observation is when the other type of Medicare beneficiary is calling around, they're calling around and they might land on us. Maybe they were trying to call Fox Rehab. They were calling other places and they call us. And then when I do, or someone on my team does the callback, obviously we don't take Medicare and we have to convey that, but they had no idea. They might not have any idea that there's any practices ever that don't take Medicare. So we're doing these callbacks and it's almost like a little bit of surprise sometimes. Like they don't understand, like, why are you guys not taking Medicare? So that goes into like, not even like an explanation, but it's like, here's why we're different. Here's why it's this price. Here's why we're out of pocket. Some of the Medicare beneficiaries will ask like, wow, that sounds expensive. Like, is that like the top end of the market? Oh, I did have someone like a week or two say that. Is that price? Is that $350 per visit? Is that like the highest in New York City? And I don't advise this, but I'm still doing this where I do calls, like I'll do a call back Friday, Saturday night, because I want to differentiate. And this woman was speaking to me, and I said, yeah, I think we're close to the top end of the New York City market. But also, if you call 5 or 10 physical therapy practices that take Medicare right now, I'm going to be the only one on the phone with you because it's Saturday night at 8 p.m. You know what I mean? So anyway, those are just some of the highlights of like my thoughts going through when someone's calling in. They may have no idea that we're even charged out of pocket and that we don't take their Medicare. And it's just interesting to see the dynamic of like the clusters of signals, like if they're going to be the right fit or not, if they've seen our online reviews or website or not, and who's truly just trying to use their Medicare benefits. And that's totally fine. That's of course, totally 100% fine. Who's focused more on that? But we're looking for a client that's focused on like the experience, the result, and just like a totally different experience. So anyway.
So I was listening to Alex Hormozy yesterday say they produce about 450 pieces of content a week, I think it was, across their platforms. And so when I think about your situation as an example, the fact that you're still getting calls from people who don't know who you are, what you do, like and I used to say this all the time. We see all the PT gurus out there saying, how do you answer? Do you take my insurance? If you're getting the call, do you take my insurance? It's a marketing problem. Once again, like that person has no context for who you are and what you do. Nobody walks into a Mercedes dealership, BMW dealership, asking if they sell $27,000 Honda. Like you go because this is BMW, this is Tiffany's, this is Ruth's Chris. Like You go because you know what you are getting into. And I would say it's the same for us. If we're having the conversation about insurance and why you don't and do you, we lost that battle. We're talking to the wrong people. We don't want to talk to the person who's more focused on how much it's going to cost versus what it's going to do. We need to get to the person who's more focused on what is this going to do? Okay, how much does it cost? And nobody at any level of wealth is like, I want to be taken advantage of. I want to spend more than I need to. Even the wealthiest among us, they will still borrow money against their assets just so they don't have to pay taxes and they can, allow those assets to continue to grow. Like everybody understands finance. We're not tricking anybody. We're not taking advantage of anybody. So I would go back to when a person comes to me. Now, again, full disclosure, I am not a cash-based provider. I don't do self-pay services. That's not the business model that I want or that I've built. But there was a time that I did. But when they come to me, I want them coming basically already being convinced. You are the person. I've known you. I've watched 20, 30, 40 of your videos. I love what you say. I love how you say it. I love the ideas that you're sharing. I don't care how much it's going to cost. This is what I need. Like that is the person that I've communicated appropriately with. That is the person that whether they have Medicare or non-Medicare, they're going to want to pay. They're going to be happy to pay. And generally, whatever the price you quote, like your example with the BPPV, the Vertigo, doesn't matter what they pay. Your ability to stop the world from spinning is more valuable to them than $1,000 in their bank account. That is the value exchange. So you gave them something worth more than $1,000 that they gave you, and they gave you $1,000, which was worth more than the hour or the 30 minutes or whatever you spent with them. Both sides of that equation walked away feeling like they got more than they gave. That's what we're striving for. But it all comes back to being able to verbalize and communicate it. And if you don't believe it, it's never going to happen, right? So you go another layer deeper and like Dave absolutely knows what he is delivering, no matter the price, is worth more than the dollars he's getting for it. And if you don't have that deep understanding of, I'm going to sell you something for $1,000. It's worth 10,000. I'm willing to accept 1,000. Don't even sell it. Like, don't even offer it. Don't go down that road. Jimmy, what are you thinking? I don't know if you were able to hear any of it.
Go ahead, Dave. What were we going to say?
Let me ask Jimmy this question. So as he was coming back in, Tony, you were saying, Hormozi's putting out 400 or 450 pieces of content per week. I want to ask Jimmy, but I believe that if I was doing that, I'm still going to get calls of people that skip social media. They may not even look at our online reviews. They may not look at our website, and they're still going to call in and they're going to still say, do you take my Medicare Part B? So Jimmy, could I ever overcome all that? Or will there always be some of those folks that fall through and they still reach out to us, even though they might not be our ideal client?
You need to put more people in the top of the funnel. That's what Hormozi is doing, right? Like who that you personally know is doing 450 pieces of content a week, not a business. Do either of you know a human being who's doing half of that? Honest answer. No. Who's the New York realtor guy? Who's the celebrity realtor guy?
Brian Sirhan.
Sirhan, right. So like how many realtors are in New York City, right? Like, but I'm sure at some point in his rise, he was taking people looking for a cute, 2-bedroom in Flatbush, right? And then he just kept saying no to those people so he could sell the $10 billion penthouse on Park Avenue. He understood it. So could you? Yes. Yes, you could. It has to be your strategy. Like, it has to be your strategy. I made a prediction 3 or 4 years ago on this podcast that most mid to large physical therapy businesses, clinics, right? The IVs, the ATIs, but also the original ones, like the ones that have like 15 to 25 locations. I said they will all have someone like, this is back when I was with Fox. I said they will all have someone like me, not a marketing person, they're a communications person whose job is to create content at scale. I don't know any of them that have it. It confuses me, right? Because if a lot of people that listen to this podcast, our streams, all when Hormozi's book comes out is all like, I'm going to do it. This is my thing. This is my thing, right? Those people are the small organizations, right? They're the Dave Kittles of the world. They're the people who have 4 or 5 employees, and they attempt to do it, but they cannot scale. It confuses me that the regional organizations who could hire an agency or bring someone on full time just say, you know what? We're going to do 450. Our goal is 450. What kinds? Don't know yet. But 450 is how we're going to figure that out. We're going to work backwards into that number. I have yet to see an organization that does it. Sorry, I amend that. Outside of Rehab to Perform. That's the only one I've seen. I don't know what their number of pieces of content per week is, but that's the only one I've seen look like they said, this is our strategy with him.
Real quick, an interesting aspect. After Dave and I talked Tuesday, I did a little research because I was like, that I am supporting free choice. I want therapists to opt out. I want patients the ability to hire a therapist for self-pay rates. I was like, I wonder how impactful this fight would be. And so based on the numbers that I could find, just a hair over 50% of Medicare-aged individuals have Medicare Advantage plans, not Medicare Part B. And Medicare Advantage is not subject to the mandatory claim submission law, which means a physical therapist could treat a patient with Medicare Advantage with no association to the plan or to Medicare itself. So now we're saying, okay, of the global, US-based Medicare population, less than half actually have Medicare Part B. And any cash-based provider, like, how many do you really need? How many can you even possibly handle? So I'm like, again, I appreciate the fight. I like the idea. I want more freedom of choice. But I'm like, are we going to expend political capital trying to get a yes to have PTs added to a small list of providers who are eligible to opt out of Medicare? I don't think anything is going to change. I still think the greatest PTs on the market right now are already charging cash because they're not providing the standard of care anyway. They're outside that. Hang on, Jimmy. And the rest of the population, me included, I have no desire to opt out of Medicare. I have plenty of strategies to make more money delivering services to a Medicare beneficiary, and I'm giving away free samples at Costco is basically what I'm doing. So even if it's bad, it's still good enough. Jimmy, what are you going to say?
So it just seems like we have professional organizations, right? You got APTA, you're talking about the UPTA.
Yeah.
They come in and they go, we're going to be everything that the APTA isn't. We're going to go after the real issues. And Tony's saying that one's not going to matter.
I just don't think it is.
It's not going to make a big difference. And yet you watch people rally around it. The funny thing is the journey is the destination for a lot of people.
Yeah.
We're going to fight. Hey, I'm meeting with my senator. What would you want to tell him? And then you watch a bunch of people tell him he's a jackass. Tell him he's a this. Tell him he needs to do these 37 things that they're not going to. Oh, okay. Let me know how that works out for you if you ever try it. It's just funny to watch. It's performative.
Well, there is a new content creator, new to me, that I've been watching. And one of the things that he brings up is when you're talking about like activism and fighting and all of these things, like there's a lot of examples throughout history of there's an activist group, they achieve an outcome, they get it, and now they're fighting the next thing. Like no major difference, no major impact. It's okay. Now they're going on to find the next thing to fight. Like they're just in the business of fighting for things. But it doesn't even matter when they win the fight, because then there's a new fight and another fight and a fight after that. They're not fundamentally changing any of the structural problems that were going on before.
Right. Somebody, because I worked with a lot of nonprofit organizations, I wasn't working for a nonprofit. I worked with them. And somebody said, well, yeah, man, in the history of our nonprofit idea, only one has ever achieved their goal. I said, which one? They said, March of Dimes cured polio, moved. And then essentially we're just like, all right, we really don't know what to do now. So, we'll do other stuff. We'll work for kids. When you take on a fight that's so big that it would take generations to figure out, it's all just one little fight after another, right? I mean,
yeah. Dave, were you going to say something before you cut out?
No, I mean, just I think that's part of the consideration. Tony mentioning, like, if this were successful, then of course there's going to be another fight and another fight, and yes, it kind of comes down to like the pre-existing challenges with insurance or the third-party payer system. But I was just going to go back to the top of the call in regards to like some of the things that like we've said, or like, I don't know if you guys wanted to go into that, but like that's something that I think obviously we're not taught and is outside of the comfort zone of most physical therapists and practice owners. And I mean, one simple thing is like for someone who's a Medicare beneficiary, like, again, these practices never have had to do this. They've never had to pitch or be salesy or, here's my core service that used to be covered by Medicare or a covered service or, another third-party payer. Here's the core service that used to be basically free. You already paid into it, like you said, Tony. But now I have a dollar amount attached to it. I just think if this were to successfully go through, if physical therapists were able to opt out, I don't know, like all the big chains are not going to opt out, right, Tony? Like it's not going to change much.
And that's the function of them. Like they do an amazing job at delivering services at scale. There's zero doubt. I would never want them to go away. I have zero, negative sentiment toward them. I think a big step in the right direction is what you did, Dave, when you created that framework of this is what we're going to do. This is how we're going to solve your problem. Week 1, week 2, week 3. You laid that out for your client. Because now what you did was you effectively built something on paper, something tangible that the client can look at and they could say, yes, this is what I want. I want to buy this thing. You made it real. You gave it substance. It was something that they could like kind of bite into and understand, as opposed to the arbitrary, well, come in, your doctor said 2 times a week for 6 weeks. We'll do 12 sessions. You have no idea what we're going to do. You have no idea who you're going to see. You have no idea, are we going to work out? Are you going to massage me? Are you going to lay me on a plant? Am I going to be balancing on a physio ball? Because you see all these crazy things across social media. If we take control back over of the narrative, at least for our company, your company, and we create this tangible thing that a consumer can buy, I think that is a big aspect to the difference between Medicare covered services, I'm going because Medicare is paying, versus I'm ready to go past that. Dave's back in the closet.
Turning more into the fight, I got this text from a friend just the other day, and this guy's a professional. He said, I had a session with a gym trainer the other day, and on his shirt in huge letters was DPT. He knows me, so he knows what letters. He got a side D. He knows what my letters are, right? Because that's what we do. We collect letters, and it's good to do. And I just said, this is last night. We were talking about this a year ago. And I said, yeah, there's been lawsuits and stuff like that. They're doing it on purpose. Not a whole lot of physical therapists can do other than sue. And he just goes, it sucks. I feel like they're misrepresenting their skill set. This is a guy who was going for an outcome. He was expecting a trainer, and he was seeing this and going, hang on a second. He knows the deal. And he's like, but you're not that. Why are you saying everybody here might think that you're that? And that was the big fight. That was the rage against the machine a year ago. Where'd that go? And even if it did, what would it, all the time, effort, and money, especially the money, what could you have done if you poured that into something else? Here's the thing. This is why I'm changing what I'm doing in the profession. This is why you might have noticed I do a whole lot less of everything I did. This month is 10 years of this podcast, of my podcast. You would have thought I would be doing like some big campaign. I'm exhausted. Here's why. Because I listen to people like Dave and I've listened to people like Tony. And here's what I've come up with. They don't want the solution I have. The thing that I like to do, and I think I do well, doesn't get the results for the people who want it because they want it, but they don't commit. I've worked for large organizations. I get hired. I talk myself into a job. And then I lay out the plan and they go, That's too much effort. I was like, but, and then I heard a great line. This is a great line. Dave, this is a line for you. When someone
accountability, follow through. What do you got?
When someone says it's too expensive, you put your papers down. And you're like, I am very sorry. I appear to have overestimated how important it was for you to solve this problem. That was a Chris Doe line. This website's going to be $15,000. $15,000. I got a buddy who can do it for buddy's son who can do it for $1,500. You stop. I have appeared to have overestimated how important it was for you to solve this problem well. You can have a website, or you can solve. What is your website solve? It gets the right people the right message and filters the right people out. That's one function of your website. So anyway, long story long is, I'm exhausted, man. People, what do we want? Change. When do we want it? Now. What are we willing to do to get it? Yell. All right. I'm done yelling. Like, I'm done. I'm out. It's too exhausting. I come back 10 years from now, we're going to have the same problems, right?
Well, because it's just easier to argue and fight and go back and forth. I've shared posts before, and it took me a long time to come to this realization. The easiest thing for me to do is come out, announce to the world that I'm going to revolutionize physical therapy, that I'm going to build, a $1 billion physical therapy practice, big goals, big aspirations, big ideas. Why is that so easy for somebody? Because you're expected to fail. When you fail, you're the hero. There's zero expectation that somebody in private practice is going to do that. But you get all of the joy, all of the dopamine, all of the excitement of making these huge claims. And like I said, when you fail, it's the expected outcome. Now, the hard thing to do is say, you know what, I'm going to build a sustainable business that gives me the lifestyle I want for my family, that's completely achievable, that I've seen other people do already. That has real impact, because now when I fail, there's an expectation for me to succeed. So you pick these big fights, you fight windmills, you do these things, like, who cares? There's no real accountability in something like that. But you set a goal that's actually achievable, and now you are expected to achieve it. I say I'm going to run a marathon. I probably should. I probably could. Like, then when I find myself sitting on the couch, watching the game, I feel like a loser. That is terrible. So that's some of this. I feel like, we're going to go fight Congress, and we're going to do all these things. Okay. We expect you to fail. Everybody else has always failed. When you fail, you're still the hero because you were fighting for us. I don't think it matters. I don't think that's a reasonable expectation.
Hey, it's Dave Kittle. Are you a healthcare business owner or physical therapy practice owner who is looking to figure out your succession plan or exit strategy? We might be able to help. And in fact, we may be interested in acquiring your practice. If you're interested, you can reach out to me. Shoot me an email at dave@conciergepainrelief.com. That's DAVE@CONCIERGE painrelief.com. Or you can call me at any time, 646-781-8884.